Nintendo 64 presents a Playguide and video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to another Lemon 64 Playguide and review. In this week's show, we'll be taking a look at Continental Circus, which was developed by Tech Software and published via the sales curve into the Virgin Mastertronic label, and that appeared in 1989. As the game loads, we can see this title picture where we can clearly see Tech and Taito, the original publishers of this game, in the arcades, and that leads nicely on to the title screen where we can see the number of tracks in this game is actually 8. There are 8 tracks altogether, and we start off at number 1. All we have to do is to press that fire button and enter the action. The aim of Continental Circus is to move through 100 cars and appear at the end at number 1 after travelling along those 8 circuits. And this game was originally called, actually, Continental Circuit, and due to a misspelling error, this was actually labelled Continental Circus. And of course the Formula 1 crew often refer to the Formula 1 team as the Formula 1 Circus, but actually that was a spelling error, and because of that, that was awarded in 1988 the Sinclair User Cock-Up of the Year. Just like a real Formula 1 race, we get to pull into the pits, and that will extinguish this fire, and that will also give us a brand new set of tyres. Unfortunately, that will mean that we'll drop a number of places, and we could lose up to 5 places simply pulling into that pit stop. So the only way to avoid getting into the pits is to not crash. We can survive 1 crash and survive 3/4, maybe a whole lap unscathed before that thing blows up, just like pole position. And unfortunately, there is no way around that. You're just going to have to drive slowly in order to get through all this traffic. But unfortunately, we cannot do that because we have a time limit, and in this game the time is very tight indeed, and as we shall see later on, the time is critical, so we cannot even afford 1 bump sometimes and hope to get through to that line and carry on with that race. Sometimes these races seem to go on forever, and sometimes you can get through those pretty quickly. Unfortunately, we are 86th and we needed 80th to qualify, so that means we're going to have to try that again. And if we hadn't have gone off, then maybe we could have got through those 6 places and made it on to that next round. But luckily, we are given a number of continues. I think it's 4 or 5 continues in this game, and that means that we can continue from where we left off. Accelerate by pushing up, and by pressing that fire button we can choose between the 1 and the 2 gears which are available on this Formula 1 racing car, and some of those had 6, 7, maybe 8 gears at some stages in their careers, but right now we can only make use of the 2. You can see some chevrons on the sides of that road, and we can see a pit stop as well. Sometimes if we are going off, it's best to create a crash just before that pit stop, and then we can pile in there. But the golden rule of this game is to not hit anything. If we can see smoke appearing, that means just 1 more hit and we'll be off the track completely. That means we have to wait some time for that to be reset back in the middle of that track and to start up all the way all over again. and so offs aren't acceptable in this game, just like Super Hang On. Really, we cannot survive any offs and hope to get through this in one go. No, you have to make sure that you survive at least these first few levels in order to get through the rest of the game. And the cheat mode, if you should choose to do that, is to actually qualify for this first race in 79th position. Use up your first continue, and then when you restart you can hopefully take 20 of the competitors, and that means that you have a head start throughout the rest of the game. And that means when we restart the next level, the next circuit in the 8, that means that we only have to pass maybe 1 or 2 drivers in order to qualify, and we can simply concentrate on that time limit. Using up 1 continue, let's just move on to another level, and this time it's America. This is the second circuit in the USA, and this is a little bit harder, and what we have to do yet again is to continue from where we left off in 72nd place, and hopefully we can get beyond 60th by the end of this long lap. Each stage of each race is broken down into checkpoints, and usually the middle section will contain that pits, but you can see that the pits on the left, we can just dive in there if we have some kind of a crash, and because we can only survive 3/4 of a lap on fire before we blow up, sometimes it's worth diving into that pits. But yet again, if we lose those 5 places, that can mean that we no longer are able to qualify and make it to the checkpoint under that quota. So you can see the time limit ticking down mercilessly until we get to the next section. Each section is marked by a red line in the road, and that will mark a third of the circuit and also a time pickup as well. You can see in this game there is just enough action and just enough speed going on at top speed to make this a fast racer, and we have the usual racing elements, including a changeable background, which really does change from level to level, even though that does appear to be drawn in only 4 colours, and we can see the usual banks of grass and the telemetry on the top of the screen. Unfortunately, we can see that we are smoking yet again, and that's really bad for our progress, because that means we're going to have to get drop out just before that line. I think it's great that it provides a map of our progress right at the end of each stage, and unfortunately we got right up to that line, and again, if we hadn't have bumped and had to go into that pit stop, then we would have made it absolutely no problem. But you can see the qualifying zone, we are still only 69th, and so we'll still have to make up 10 places to even qualify, unless we make use of the first level trick of retrying that first stage all over again and making sure that we are at least 20 places up by this stage. Although there is no outright music in this game, the game has provided a number of jingles, including when we cross those lines, and I think it's a pity that it doesn't give us some kind of mark of a countdown when we initially start the race, but it does give us a number of jingles, and they certainly fill out the atmosphere and make this feel like an arcade racer. This certainly was an arcade racer. It appeared in 1988 on the Taito label in the arcades, and this conversion was created by the Tech Software crew, headed up by Peter J. Hickinson and Bill Count. They created the Monsters in 1988 and also Chubby Gristle, and they moved on to Road Rash and Moonshine Racers on the Amiga. Tech software were mainly involved with conversions, and of course that was set up by Peter Harrop and Sean Hollingworth along with Tony Kavanagh, and that was renamed Chrysalis Software, and that survived until 2001. On the 64, one trip to the pits means we have not survived, and that means that we're going to have to retry yet again all over again, and this time let's at least make that qualifying rank in order to get through to the third of the 8 courses, and then we're not so humiliated after all these years away from this game. Yes, I used to be able to complete this every single time, and it was fun to boot this up and have a go, but unfortunately it is merciless when it comes to not only that time limit, but also the qualifying rank as well. So let's try to continue, and we are taken by at least 3 cars on the line. That's great. That means we have to find our way past 6. And yes, if you don't touch any of these cars and drop it down into first gear, then we won't have to spend any time in that pit stop, and that means we should be able to get through these races first time every time. Sometimes in this game it's better to stay in front and stay on the track rather than take a trip to that pit stop, and in this case sometimes it's better to be on fire and try to gain some places beyond those other racers, and that means that we can get further with the game rather than having to delay in that pits. Because we will be overtaken too many times, it means that if we blow up, it means we can restart at the last position where we left off, and you can see we are in position 50 right now, sailing straight through. We made it through to another pit stop, and hopefully that will mean 4 places lost in that procedure. Just like all the best racers, it's possible to cut that grass, and on the inside sometimes the chevrons aren't there because they are pointing towards the opposite side, of course, so you can cut that grass on the inside and that will shave off some of that top speed and allow you to get through most corners without having to gear down. Of course, the woman waving the flag is a rip-off of Outrun, and there are a few Outrun-y things in this game, but this was a rival of Outrun in the arcades, so why wouldn't it be so on the Commodore 64? I think this game runs a little slower than Outrun. On Commodore 64, at least we get at least 3 cars to overtake on the screen, and we also get some trees lining that track as well. So actually, all things considered, there is plenty going on and there is lots of information, and all the player wants to do is to cut those corners, and of course they'll be perfectly safe as long as they don't touch anything else. But you can see that this game has decided that rain is the best option to try and slow me down, and it's yet again a nice rain effect which affects the very bottom of that screen. No idea why that isn't full screen, but it certainly doesn't slow down the action, and it actually doesn't change the driving model or the controls either, and I didn't notice much of a change, but it's a great visual effect nonetheless. Sometimes you have to gear down if you are boxed in like that, and I think it's great that it actually takes off another car which lines the side of that road, but we are not driving laps in this race. All we need to do is to get through to the end, and yet again time is not on our side, even though we can actually qualify. From a rain-soaked France, let's move to the south of that area, and let's move to Monaco, and hopefully we can have a drier time this time. And even though these corners look like they are absolutely ridiculous, you won't actually find hairpins in this game, and I'd be surprised if anyone can actually follow the track layout from the actual track. But due to that headway, we have made it to 46 now, and heading towards the last 6 cars. And even though this place is pretty samey, the backgrounds do change, even though it looks more like New York, and the rain is back with us as well, and we actually find a little wiggle and a little chicane in the road, which is great, and adds to that great feel of Formula 1. When I had this was the closest thing I had to Formula 1 until I found Grand Prix Circuit, and then I obviously played that to death. But this game for its day was a capable effort on the Commodore 64. There are no major bugs in this. The screen will not judder and the car will not appear on the other side of that track by using that controller in the wrong direction, not like Super Hang-On. Sometimes safe spots aren't for mistiming, and if you get onto that grass, you'll only be safe as long as you're on it, and that car just appeared at the wrong place at the wrong time, and so let's try to soldier on again. Let's try not to hit anything, otherwise we really will get delayed, and look at that, sometimes 3 at a time, you'll have to be wiped out. In this case, you can see a wipeout is no problem, because we are only passed by 1 or 2 drivers trying to recover from that. And that means that we can actually run out of time just on that line, unfortunately, but sometimes a wipeout is better and it saves us some places. But yet again we failed, so we really are using up these continues quickly, and this is not like the arcade where we had infinite continues as long as we had deep pockets. Now in this game we have at least 5, and we'll be using all of those up on this playthrough. I think that the sense of speed is just about good enough for a Commodore 64 game, especially a Formula 1 racer. There definitely were faster games out there, like the Great American Cross Country Road Race, and games that we shall see later on, like Turbocharge, which really did floor it and had so much more better graphics than this. And for $89 you can only just get away with these blocky Formula 1 cars, but it was good in its day, and for my day it really was a challenge. Fun to get into, and it always seemed to play it very fairly depending on my skills on the day. Or perhaps a lack thereof, but I have respect for this game even now, and I have seen many diabolical races on the Commodore 64 which aren't actually as fun as this, and there are a very mixed bag of races of course on the 64. I do rate this highly, but of course it's not one of the very best. It's one of my favourites, and I like taking those shortcuts, and I like cheating in this game, using the continues at the preferred spots. But playing this normally, the average driver will get waylaid, simply trying to overtake those guys, and that isn't a great feeling, trying to nurse this Hulk around yet another lap, trying to make it through to an invisible pit stop somewhere over that horizon. You can see the time limit is ticking down. I am not for stopping, and what do we find? Well, we actually find the line. Despite the lack of music, I really do appreciate those jingles, and I like the fact that we were definitely on fire going over that line, but the smoke decided to clear up the moment that we passed that line, and that's an extra added funny feature. So let's just move on to Hockenheim, which appears to be very hilly, but it is at least the original length of Hockenheim before it was changed fairly recently. You can see this plays just like every other track, and I think track variations would have been better, something to distinguish track for track, and maybe they could have gone for something at the side of the road other than the same boring trees. But you can see 1 knock or 2 outs, and we're absolutely nowhere in this game, and sometimes those guys can simply bunch up, and there is no way to avoid that. You can see they steer around the corner in a parabola line, and sometimes if those racing lines clash with those, there is no way around it. At this stage, our qualifying position isn't too much of a problem, and sneaking over that line, we managed to gain some time as well. So whilst we still have some time, let's take a look at those scores. The lowest score I could find came from the Games Machine, which awarded this masterpiece 56%, and then the next one in line happens to be the Lemon 64 score. They currently rate this at 69%, which is almost the magic 7 out of 10 for this being very good. Commodore Format gave the game 74%. Zap also initially gave this 74%, but dropped that to 70 for the real release. And CMBG awarded Continental Circus 76%, but the highest score came from Commodore Force, who gave this an amazing 86%. And so this is certainly not a bad game on the C64. It has some playability and some arcade atmosphere. It's just that there are too many deficiencies, like even high score music, which seems to let it down at the last moment. And so that brings the average score down to 7 out of 10. But you can see this game is a valiant effort, and I really did appreciate this at the time. Thank you for viewing another Lemon 64 play guide and review. Hope to see you for another one sometime soon. Thank you.